We spend so much time focused on the candidates and the campaigns. But what if I told you a massive change to the system we use to elect the US president is quietly gaining ground state by state? It's a plan that could totally reshape American elections, and honestly, it's way closer to becoming a reality than most people have any idea.
Wow, that is a pretty dramatic warning, right? And it comes from a recent analysis of a movement called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. And we're not talking about some pie in the sky idea here. This is an active, ongoing effort. So let's get into it.
Okay, so what is this thing exactly? It's not a new amendment to the Constitution, and it's not some new federal law. It's something different. It's an agreement between states, an idea that was born directly from the controversy of some pretty recent history. So at its heart, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, or NPVIC for short, is basically a pledge. Any state that joins makes a simple promise. They'll award all of their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the most votes across the entire country, regardless of who won their own state. Now, this idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was first introduced way back in 2006, and it was a direct response to the 2000 election, where Al Gore won the popular vote, but George W. Bush won the presidency through the Electoral College. Then, the whole movement got a huge new shot of momentum after 2016 when, well, the exact same thing happened. Okay, but how would this actually work? You might think it's got to be super complicated, but the strategy is surprisingly simple. It all boils down to a three-step process that uses powers states already have. So first, a state's legislature just has to pass a regular bill to join the club. Once they're in, they've officially made that pledge we just talked about. But, and this is the really clever part, the whole thing stays dormant. It doesn't do anything, it only activates or goes live when enough states have joined up to control at least 270 electoral votes. And that, of course, brings us to the big question, the one everyone's thinking. After all this time, how close are they to actually hitting that goal? So let's talk about that magic number, 270. That is the finish line. It's the majority of the 538 total electoral votes, and it's the number a candidate needs to become president. The compact is basically designed to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It guarantees the national popular vote winner gets those 270 electoral votes. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at how far along they already are. States with a combined 209 electoral votes have already signed on. That means the compact is 77% of the way to its goal. They only need 61 more votes for this whole thing to kick in. And this isn't some old movement that's just stalled out. The momentum is happening right now. 17 states plus DC are in. Minnesota joined just last year, in 2023. Maine got on board this year, 2024. And, according to the source material, Virginia's legislature actually passed the bill this past February. If the governor signs it, that's another 13 votes, bringing the total to 222. The finish line is getting really, really close. So, as you can probably guess, a plan this big, this audacious, well, it's kicked up a massive constitutional debate. And there are two very, very different ways of looking at it. So you've got two camps, right? On one side, supporters see this as a smart, practical fix. They say it guarantees one person, one vote, and it stops what they call minority rule. They'll also tell you that the Constitution gives states the power to choose their electors however they want. But on the other side, you've got the critics, and they see this as a really dangerous backdoor scheme to get rid of the Electoral College, which was originally designed to make sure smaller states had a voice.
The real heart of the argument against the compact is this. Changing something as fundamental as how we elect the president should require a full-blown constitutional amendment. They argue that this whole thing is just a clever way to get around Article 5, the official and intentionally very difficult process for actually amending the Constitution.
And this quote from the Heritage Foundation really sums up that whole perspective. They call it an unprecedented misuse of power that basically treats the Constitution like it's some kind of obstacle you have to get around instead of a framework you're supposed to respect. Okay, so let's play this out. The compact is getting super close to 270, and the debate is absolutely polarized. What happens if it actually activates? Well, just about everyone agrees the fight would instantly jump from the state capitals straight to the courtroom. So just picture it for a second. Some states signs on, they hit 270 electoral votes, the compact is officially live. What happens on day one? A total flood of lawsuits from opponents trying to stop it.
And legal experts predict those lawsuits would probably focus on three huge constitutional questions. First, the compact clause. Do states need permission from Congress to make an agreement like this? Then there's the electors clause. Can a state legally award its electors based on votes that were cast in other states? And finally, you've got equal protection. Does this whole setup unfairly water down the votes of people in states that haven't joined the compact?
And look, this isn't just a few people worrying on the sidelines. The potential for absolute chaos is so real that the nonpartisan Congressional Research Service, these guys are the experts. They've flat out called this a constitutional crisis in waiting. They're worried it could lead to massive nationwide recount battles.
Which, of course, leads to the ultimate question. Is the Supreme Court going to have to get involved and decide the fate of this whole thing?
According to pretty much every legal expert out there, the answer is yeah, almost certainly. The Supreme Court actually has original jurisdiction over disputes between states, so its involvement is pretty much seen as a given.
So that's where we are. We're left with this huge question. Is this compact a brilliant, necessary fix to make sure the person with the most votes actually wins the White House? Or is it a reckless gamble, a constitutional shortcut that threatens the very system the country was built on? With this thing maybe just 1 or 2 legislative sessions away from happening, this is no longer a what-if debate. It's a question our country might have to answer for real very, very soon.